So let's discuss the first one. Activity number 2 is calculation of the mean, the standard deviation, and the coefficient. Coefficient and variation. Bakit? And variation, that is of variation. Anyway, sige. So what I told you to do in this activity is to first weigh your mice and then record the tail length also using a ruler, and then after that you have to calculate the mean, the standard deviation, and the coefficient of variation. I'll be collecting all activities on Wednesday also. Just use that first for you to study for the exam, and then plot the frequency distribution curve. However, itong distribution curve, hindi ko na siya ipapagawa during the exam class kasi medyo mahirap na mag-exam tapos mag-graph kayo. So I don't have here. I don't have data here, but I'll just show you example on how are you going to do the computation. Wait lang. Do not forget your calculators on Wednesday. So I'll be really asking you to compute class. So for example, you got this following data for the weight of the mice. So like mouse 1 weighs 30 grams. The mouse 2 weighs 29.5 grams. Mouse 3 is 29.78 grams. Mouse 4 is 32 grams, and mouse 5 is 25.6 grams. These are just hypothetical data since I don't have your data during the experiment. So syempre, I believe everyone knows how to compute the mean. For the mean, just have to add everything and then divide it with the number of scores. Wait, I don't okay, kinuha pala ng kapatid ko ang calculator ko. Please take out your calculator. Help me with the computation. I don't have my calculator here. Kinuha pala ng kapatid ko last time. Wait lang ha. Contact lang. Wait. Chat ko lang. Have my calculator here. Okay. Anyway, so let me just use my phone first. This is 30 plus 29.5 plus 29.78 plus 32 plus 25.6. So that is 146.88. And then we will divide this sa number of scores. So we have 5. So this is divided by 5. Our mean here, let's round it off to 2 decimal places. Our mean here is 29.38 or 29.376. So this is our mean. So sabi ko kanina, walay kurat atong mean, no? You know how to solve the mean for the mean. Now, how about the standard deviation? You have your standard deviation last time sa inyong statistics, but let us compute for that again. How do we compute for our SD? SD is equal to the square root of the summation of x minus the mean, and then you have to square this one divided by n minus 1. Okay, this is our formula for the standard deviation. So when you say summation, you have to write everything. So SD, I forgot my pen. Okay, this is the square root of, isa-isahin natin siya ha, starting with the 30 grams. I hope you did this one sa mga papers ninyo. And then, what was our, again? 29 point, let's just use 29.38 This is squared here. And then since this is summation, so let's add everything. We have to do everything ha. So 29, isa-isahin talaga natin yan. 29.5 minus 29.38. Pangitas kong agi. Squared. This is squared. Plus, what's next? 29.78. So this is 29.78 minus, ay, baliktad. Ay, tama. 29.38 pala yung ating mean. And then again, squared. And di na siya makasya. Plus 32. 32 minus 29.38 squared. Dito ko na lang ilagay sa baba yung isa ha. So this is plus 25.6 minus 29.38. This is 38. And then squared. I hope you can still read my writing sa screen. Divided by n minus 1. So n is the number of scores. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is 5 minus 1. Let me just correct the square root. So ang square root sa buo yan siya ha. Ito sa kumagi. So isa-isahin natin. 30 minus 29.38 is 0.62. Mamaya ko na siya lagyan ng ng square root. Nahuman na si Pauline. Hagkamang pa din he. Don't have everything. Nga naman good me. Again, this is 0.62 plus 29.5 minus 29.38 is 0.12. Oh, I forgot. Wala pa, hindi pa ito na squared ha. This is just, minus lang talaga ako. 29.78 minus 29.38 is 0.4 plus 32 minus 29.38 is 2.62. And lastly, 25.6. So isa hundred na to, no? 25.6 minus 29.38 is negative 3.78. Then this is squared divided by 4. This is divided by 4. And then square root of everything. Okay. Next. So square natin. Isa-isa. 0.62 squared. Pataas. Mag-text na lang ako ha. Kasi nahirapan ako mag-text. 0.3844 plus 0.12 squared is 0.0144. Ay. Plus 0.4 squared. 0.16 plus susunod 2.62. 2.62 squared is 6.8644. And lastly, negative 3.78 squared. So walang negative na answer sa standard deviation ha. Tell me if I missed something ha. Kasi I don't really have my calculator. 2884. Okay. Okay. And then this is again divided by 4. Then you get the square root. Last na yung square root. Okay, let's add 0.3844 plus 0.0144 plus 0.16 plus 6.8644 plus 14.2884. This is 21.7116 divided by 4. Okay. So next, let's divide this sa 4. So pag divide siya sa 4, this will become square root of 5.427. So therefore, our standard deviation here, I cannot control. What is the square root of 54279? Do I have a square root here? Yeah, I have a square root. Square root of 5.4279. Round off to 2 decimal places. The answer is 2.33. Do we get the same answer? Okay. This is our standard deviation. Sige, nakuha nyo yun? Natulog na ning uban din. Anali, unsay answer ni mo? Manawag. Ay, mabalaan dyan na to, natulog. Wala si Anali. Natulog na ni siya.
Marako.
What's your answer?
2.329785398, ma'am.
Okay. Sige. Okay. Sige, so that's how you compute for the standard deviation, ha? How about the coefficient of variation? Yung ating formula for coefficient of variation is just, standard deviation divided by the mean times 100. Okay, so this is not really a difficult one. I-divide lang natin. What was done again? 2.33. 2.33 divided by our mean. That's 29.38 times 100. Okay, so 2.33. 2.33 times divided by 29.38 times 100. The correct answer here is 7.93. Take note, nag-times 100 tayo. So the coefficient of variation is in percentage. So ito yung gusto kong makita in your output sa activity number 2. So you will have 2 answers each since you have to compute both for the weight and also for the length of the tail. Okay? Now you just have to collect the data from your classmates para dumami yung data ninyo dyan. Do you have questions or clarifications sa computation? May gusto kayong itanong? Wala. Sige. Oh, kasali. Kasali ito sa lab exam. I was not able to include this one sa prelim. So ngayong midterm natin siya isasali. Okay, so you really have to bring your calculators on Wednesday. Okay, so state the importance of biostatistics in experimental biological investigation. What's your answer there? Let us call names and let's have our participation in the laboratory para na kayo ma-record sa inyong grado. Let's start with, ako lang mamili ha. Ibintat-bintat natin. Laika. What's your answer for number 1? What's the importance of biostatistics in experimental biological investigation? This is included in pharmacology. We are studying drugs. We are studying how to make new drugs through experimental procedures. So why do we need statistics here? Wala si Laika. Let me record this first. Okay, so let ko na lang. Yeah. Wala. Bilang ko 1 to 5. 1. Please elaborate your answer. What do you mean that info? Info saan? Ano rin siya dari defense? Bakit kailangan natin ng statistics? Why do you think? Before kayo nag-research, nag-statistics muna kayo na subject. So why do we need statistics in experimental biological investigation? What info are you talking about?
Ma'am, for me lang ma'am, para makakuha pag mga deep information ma'am, para saan ba ma'am sa paracetamol. So, sa paracetamol, kailangan ng statistic investigation ma'am, para mas ma-identify yung quality na and effectiveness of drugs ma'am before sa market.
Like what? Like how? Like how? How do we know that?
First ma'am, siguro tong mga phase 1 na first kay identify yung efficacy, second as phase 2 kay kung mag-effect ba siya sa mga tao ma'am.
Phase 1 is safety, right? Phase 1 is
Ay,
safety.
sorry ma'am, safety. Second, phase 2 is efficacy po.
So, saan papasok statistics dyan? Saan papasok si statistics?
Siguro ma'am, to identify ma'am kung effect dito tong drugs.
Paano? Paano? I want the specific answer.
To conduct ma'am, study, tapos to halimbawa ma'am sa paracetamol kailangan ng mga moisture content, mga microbial testing. Ako sure.
Ilayo na what we are talking about statistics here. Anong importance ng statistics sa experimental biological investigations natin? Who wants to answer? Aside from Laika. Graduhan na tamo diretso ha. Okay, para diretso na ko ani record. Wants to answer? You can unmute your microphone ha, and then tell me your answer. Or you can first raise your hand and then after that unmute your microphone para I can hear your answers, class. Yan. Hindi siya makita. Hi. Okay, Carl. Sige, Carl.
Ang statistic, ma'am, is magamit siya usually sa research by ma'am. Mag-perform ta og hypothesis test na para ma-determine nato atong claim kung tama kung approve ba siya or dili if like if for example about sa new drug if and new drug and new procedure is kaning murag gamatch ba siya sa tuang findings niya.
Okay. So, ano mostly ang findings ng experiment natin? Anong klaseng data siya? Linguistic data ba siya? Numerical data ba? Ano ba mostly makukuha natin na data sa experiment? Like,
Mostly mga numerical, ma'am, kay based
Okay.
sa tuang murag ihang percentage yun, ma'am, kung sa mas approve, ma'am.
Yeah, so ganito. Mostly our data are numerical for experimental procedures. Like we are talking about efficacy of the drug. How do you know na it's effective? So syempre we are going to conduct experiment. Kung example, hindi pa siya clinical trial kasi clinical trial involves human subject. Example, bisag correct clinical trial pa lang using our laboratory animals. Like paracetamol, kasi na-mention siya ni Laika kanina, we are going to give paracetamol to our laboratory animals. And then after that, we will measure their body temperature. So the body temperature there is a numerical data. And then, how do we interpret this numerical data? Syempre, through the help of statistics. We can use different statistical tools for the analysis and interpretation before we can have our conclusion whether our drug substance is effective or not. Okay? Pwede tayong, kasi most of the time for biological investigation, we will have a new drug and then we have to compare it to an existing drug, and that's what we call our positive control. So, di ba may mga questions tayo sa research na is there a significant difference between our investigational drug and our positive control? We cannot answer that without statistics. We need the different statistical tests to tell us whether significant ba yung difference ng mga numerical data na ito or hindi. Yun lang yung hinahanap ko na answer here sa number 1. Okay? Do you have questions or clarifications? So yes, tama ito, Rylan, to analyze and interpret the numerical data that we obtain during the experimentation or the experimental biological investigation. Okay? Kasi pag tinanong ka, yung result mo ba na nakuha during the experiment sa grupong ito ay different sa result doon sa kabilang grupo, hindi ka naman kasi basta-bastang conclude na yes, different just by looking at the numbers. So dyan papasok si statistics. Kaya pinag-aaralan din natin siya before we really get into the drug discovery and other experimental investigations that we do, okay, sa pharma. Okay? Let's not get away with the yung mostly kasi yung utak natin puno ng mga complicated na mga things. Let's just focus doon sa basic. Okay? Sige, so determine if there is a direct correlation between the variables using other biostatistical analysis. Actually, you cannot answer this without really doing the testing. So it's actually, this question is actually an application of your statistics dati, no? I-apply nyo siya dito. Example, what variables do we have? In this activity, you have the tail, the length of the tail, and also the weight. You may answer this one using the Pearson R correlation. If you can still remember how to use the JASP software, you may do that, or you may really do the yung manual computation ng Pearson R. So like balikan nyo yung past lesson nyo. So mag-compute muna kayo. Itali nyo muna lahat ng weight ng mice and then lahat ng length of their tail, and then you do the computation, the Pearson R correlation. Yung nag-Pearson R last time sa kanilang research, most likely fresh pa sa inyo yan. And I hope you still know how to do that. Okay? Para masagutan nyo itong question na ito. Okay? If you cannot remember how to do that, I'll give you a video kasi I have limited time. I'll give you a video on how to do the Pearson-R correlation. But nevertheless, I will not really ask you to compute for this one sa exam, no? Kay mabtantag siyam-siyam ani kung ipakompute na ko niya sa inyo ha sa exam, and at the same time, you don't have your software kasi sa exam. Okay? Pero for the sake of your output sa activity number 2, you really have to do Pearson-R correlation to answer whether there is a direct correlation between our variables. Our variables are the weight and the length of the tail. Kung meron bang correlation. When you say correlation, diba, we are talking about significant relationship here. And when you say relationship, mostly we are talking about whether they have direct or inverse na relationship. Pag direct, ganito yon. Pag tumaas yung kanyang weight, tataas din yung tail. But if the relationship is inverse, pag tumaas ang weight, bababa yung tail. Yan yung ibibigay sa atin ng Pearson-R correlation. Kasi we cannot really conclude whether there is a direct correlation if we will just look at the data. Okay? Hindi, titingnan mo lang, ito yung mga results niya sa weight, ito yung results niya sa length of ng tail. Hindi mo siya masasagot kung may relationship ba or wala. Kaya kailangan natin yung statistics. Okay? I'll give you a video again on how to do the Pearson-R correlation using the software. You can even do that. Kung wala kayong JASP software, you can do that sa inyong Excel. Bigyan ko kayo ng video nun later para magawa niyo siya and masagot niyo tong number 2. I don't have data kasi now. Okay? Now, number 3, what are the possible sources of bias in this experiment? Sige, isa-isahin natin. Give me one only ha, kasi marami tayong possible sources of bias wherein because of these biases, we will get variations in our results. Okay, give me one. Wait lang. Wants to answer first? Para na ako i-record sa inyo, ha? Wait lang ha, kay. Okay, Rylan. Give me one only.
Good morning, ma'am. Try ko lang po. Sa proper handling, ma'am, especially sa weighing po ng mice.
What's the problem there?
Pag sa proper handling, ma'am, pag hindi po good yung pag hawak, magka-cause siya ng problem, lalo na pag mag-weigh po ng mice.
Okay, sige. What else? Give me another one. Jase.
In relation to ma'am sa Rylan, ma'am. Also,
At Pinakintingog.
ay sorry po. Danggan ma'am. Klaro ma'am.
Sige, go. Gora.
During po sa data collection ma'am, probably po kung ano po yung gina-aim ng researcher na gusto nila pong ma-achieve, they will tamper po sometimes sa po. Possibly po they will tamper po the data collection po.
Okay. So the researcher, it's themselves may be a source of bias.
Yes po. Yes po.
Okay. Sige. What else? Yes, Charles.
Sa measurement po, ma'am, pwede sa weighing, pwede rin sa pag-measure ng length ng tail. Minsan, ma'am, if malikot ang mice, ma'am, hindi siya ma-measure maayos, lalo na sa analytical balance. Pag malikot ang mice, change ang weight po.
Okay, very good. Sige. Next, Hershin.
In connection lang po sa sinabi ni Jassy, ma'am, na selection of subject is also considered a source of error, considering that it is another bias that arises since the students select subjects that are more likely to generate the desired result.
Okay. Sige. Who else? Meron pa? Kim, are you raising your hand, Kim?
Yes, ma'am. To me, ma'am, the length and size of the mice function, it has variation variations po, it can possibly produce varying results. That's why there could be ano po, problems in uniformity.
Okay, sige. Ganito, I don't know if you have this one in your QC na subject, no? Pero most of the time, yung sa experimentations, we have 4 sources of variations. We call that 4 ba? 3. Let's see later. The M's. So, pwedeng kaya yung sabi niyo kanina, for a researcher kasi, pwedeng yung researcher themselves may be the source of bias kasi like, they want to achieve something, so they may tamper the result, or pwede ding the researcher is not really knowledgeable on how to handle, example, the laboratory animals, or even the equipments that they have to use. Example, they don't know how to calibrate the analytical balance, they don't know how to use that, or even the caliper, if you used caliper during the measurement of the tail, or yung ruler, hindi masyadong skillful yung researcher. So, pwede yan. So, that's number 1 ha. We call that men. Kasi i-M na lang natin lahat. Tapos, number 2 is method. So, kasi there are procedures na hindi talaga perfect para makuha natin yung perfect din na result. So, pwedeng there is something wrong in the procedure, that is why we don't get the accurate result, or hindi siya talagang nasusunod. Okay? And then another M is machine. Okay? So yung machine din, example, our analytical balance, we don't know kasi if it is properly calibrated or not. So it may give us results still, may result pa rin naman siya, pero we don't know if that is really accurate because we don't know if it is properly calibrated. So this might be the cause of or sources of bias in our experiment. 3 M's lang pala yun. Men, method, machine. Did I miss something? Method. What else? I thought it was 4M. 3M lang pala siya. Men, method, machine. I think so. It's 3M. So, yan yung mga sources of biases natin in the experiment. Men meaning I'm talking about the researcher, the investigator, the one who is performing the experiment. So, klase-klaseng reason yan bakit magkakaroon ng bias. Number 1, pwedeng itamper talaga ng researcher, kagaya ng sabi ni Jase, yung result kasi you want to obtain something. And then number 2, yung skill talaga or yung knowledge mismo ng researcher or yung nag-experiment yung may problem. So, hindi talaga siya, material, sorry, I forgot. That's really 4M, the material. Kaya yung, the 4th M is material. Kindly list that down. Yan yung iniisip ko kanina. 4M yun. Material. Okay, so pwedeng yung mice itself, yung material talaga na ginamit ninyo, pwede siyang source of bias. In any investigation, it's not just about activity number 2. Okay, so our goal is sa activity number 2 is just to have a very little review on statistics for you to be reminded that all investigations that we do in the laboratory, especially involving numerical data, will have to undergo statistical testings before we can have a viable conclusion, okay? Or inferences or generalization for our investigation or for our experiment. So during the exam, let's have the computation, the simple ones lang, and then I will not be giving you a lot of numerical data na. So probably it will just be 5 data, just like my example. And then I'll be asking you to compute for the mean, the standard deviation, and the coefficient of variation. I will not be asking you anymore to do Pearson R correlation because that's very mahaba. We cannot finish that one in one sitting or in the whole duration of the laboratory exam. So you just have to review the Pearson R correlation for you to answer number 2 in the guide questions, whether there is a direct correlation between the weight of the mice and also the length of their tail. Ha? Pero do not forget ha, pag sinabing correlation, we are talking about yung relationship ng dalawang variables. Depende kung directly proportional or inversely proportional. Siyempre, pag direct, kung tataas yung isa, tataas din yung another variable. So, meaning kung tataas yung weight ng isang mouse, tataas din yung kanyang length ng tail. Kung inversely, yung isa, bababa. Yan yung hinahanap natin sa number 2. Do you have questions for activity number 2? Please do not forget your calculator. Habasig pag-abot sa Wednesday na pwede na mo calculator. Do not ever forget that. Kay magdisod taan ni na niyay mag-mental math sa Wednesday. Nagbawi para ba mo, especially those na alanganin sa prelim